Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Can you hear me? If you can, do me a favor and drop something in the comment. And then we'll begin in a couple of seconds. All right, great. So I think what we're going to do today is design some characters. So it's going to be pretty free form. I can already see that a couple of people in the live chat are asking if this is going to be a beginners or intermediate. It's going to be pretty free form, so I'm going to try and keep it at a beginner's level. But if anybody has some more complex questions, just drop them in the live chat and I'd be happy to answer them. So the first thing we're going to see here is the lobby. And so this is the lobby with the new update. And so what I'm going to do here is basically just use new sketch. So I'll trigger select that. And now I'm in my own room here where I can start creating and start sketching. So as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, we're going to do some characters. So usually whenever it comes to characters, I start them one of two ways. I'll either start with a loose sketch like this and then start to do some surfacing on them, or I will come in here and just start from a primitive shape and use Sub-D to start placing things and getting an idea of what the volumes are going to be. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to click Sub-D here, I'm sorry, primitive shapes, and go to cube and drop a cube in the space. Now there's two ways to do this. First way is just press the pointer finger trigger and adjust the size of the cube. That is determined by how close your controllers are to each other. And then when you let go, it drops the cube in the space. Or you can press the left pointer finger trigger and then the right pointer finger trigger. And this gives you a little bit more control over the size of the cube before dropping it in your environment. So I'm going to be changing around a lot of things, so it really doesn't matter to me what the shape of the cube is. But now that I have it in my environment, what I want to do is convert it to Sub-D. So I'm going to grab this cube, hold it, and press the blue menu button at the same time. And you can see here, before it's a Sub-D object, so it's just a regular primitive object right now, we have these simple ways of adjusting it. We can grab these different axes here, so like actually reach out and grab the arrow, and choose how we want to scale things. But once we click Convert to Subdivision Object, it looks like something you might see, or geometry you might see in something like Maya or Blender. So you have your edit points, your faces, and your edges. And we can just continue to move these around and shape our object. And we can also connect them across the mirror plane by just dragging them to the mirror plane, and you'll see that your edit point changes its graphic to this solid black square with a keyhole cut out. And basically what that means is you're connected across the mirror plane. And what's nice about Sub-D is, if I turn on Subdivision here, you'll see we have tangency across the mirror plane. So I have a nice curved shape and there's no peak there. So now what I'll do is actually just start to move around these edit points and even drop in edge loops by selecting an area along an edge and trigger selecting. And so now I have more data to work with here to start shaping this thing out. You can also grab faces and move them around, and actually duplicate out faces as well. So I'll grab this face and then press the pointer finger trigger to duplicate it out. So in this case, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to duplicate it again and go left on the joystick and right on the joystick to scale it. And yeah, so I'll scale it like that, duplicate it again, and push it in because I want a bit of a recess here. And of course you can continue to keep adding points And pretty quickly, with those simple tools that I just went over, you're able to shape something out. So I think I'm making some sort of a blob character here, and this looks like it could be a mouth. And then we're shaping some of the head here. And let's make this a little more attractive of a color. So let's stick with that yellow. And then I'm also going to grab this and not only change the color, but change the material up here. So there you have these 4 materials that you can access up here. So basic material, reflective material, tune material, and flat material. Especially for something like this, I like the tune material. It gives this heavy outline, and it really takes the shape and it kind of gives it this uniform look. Okay, so that's a good start. Let's drop some eyeballs in here. So I'm going to go back to primitive, select sphere, and drop some of those in. Change the color to white. And it's not like we're actually connecting geometry together. We're just overlapping here. So this actually is very similar to kit bashing. And that's starting to look better. Like I can start to get an idea of what this character is going to be like. And as you can see, there's no plan here. It's just a lot of playing around with edge loops, adding more data and deleting data. Let's add some nostrils up here. And again, if you have any questions, just drop them in the live chat. I'll check it out every now and then. And it's pretty easy to demo things up here, so yeah, feel free to ask anything. Okay, now I'm thinking might be good to add some sort of a body. And it also might be good to start doing some loose sketch lines and figure out what that body is going to look like. Okay. And actually, one more thing I'm going to do is duplicate out that sphere and shift it on the x-axis there. Let's make this black and add some pupil. Actually, let's shift it in X as well. Get kind of like this snake cat eye look. All right, cool. So next I'm going to use the stroke tool for the limbs. I kind of want these long, goofy limbs on this guy. So let's change this to, we can change it to the same color as the head. And yeah, now we can start drawing the limbs. And of course you can take those sketch lines, put them in edit mode, start shifting those around. And what's really nice is you can actually grab these edit points and go left and right on the joystick and scale them as well. So we can add a bit of a taper to the legs. All right, that looks pretty good. And let's go back to cube here, drop something in, and give this guy some pants. So again, drop it in, convert it to sub D, and actually let's change this to a different color. And first I'm just going to shape it out without any subdivision on. All right, now that I have a little more confidence in the shape that we made, let's turn on subdivision all the way and delete these top faces so that we have a nice clean edge here. All right, now what I want to do is, and let me just duplicate this up so it's a little easier to see here. I'm actually going to delete this bottom face as well. All right, so we have a pair of pants, and let's say that we want to add some, maybe not actual thickness to the surface, but definitely some thickness to the top edge of the surface here. So it's sort of faking thickness for the surface. Well, one thing we could do is, grab an edge and duplicate it in, and then grab this edge, duplicate it in, and keep doing that. And at least for this surface, it's not that complicated. We only have, a few edges that we'd have to do that with. But a quicker way of achieving this is to look at your edit panel here and turn on auto select loops. And if that panel's in the way, you can hide it by pressing the purple button. Might help for something like this where we need to zoom in and be closer. And what auto edge loops is going to allow you to do is actually select an entire loop of surfaces and edges there. And so we're going to use that for the brim of the pants here, and grab it, press the pointer finger button to duplicate it. So grab it, pointer finger, and then left on the joystick. And that's going to allow us to scale that in, and then we can add some more edge loops here to get a tighter radius on the pants. So now let's delete that, drop these pants down like that. Then we can adjust things even more. All right. And let's also add some teeth. So again, I'm just going to do that with the primitive cube. Actually, you know what? We're going to go to primitives, and instead of using just the regular cube, let's go over to the soft cube and preview something that's generally going to be the shape of our teeth, like that. Nice rounded off cube. And let's change that to be white. Give them a good smile here. And we can shrink that down and start to duplicate that out. So we could duplicate it out exactly by using Smart Move, which I will demonstrate here in a second. So yeah, let's use Smart Move again here. So Smart Move allows you to move an object or edit points directly along an axis. So we can move along Y, we can move along Z and X. And the way that you do this is by taking your controllers and aligning them head to toe like this. That's the first step, and we're not going to press any buttons at first. So we're going to align the controllers, and then we're going to highlight our geometry. Now, one thing you'll notice is normally when you highlight geometry, you don't have any lines or any UI that pop up. But when you do this with your controllers aligned head to toe like this, you get the color of the axes lighting up between your two controllers. And this only happens if you have them lined up head to toe, highlight your geometry, and you're parallel to the axes that you want to move along. So in this case, we're parallel to the y-axis. And now that we have this UI showing, we know that we're ready to use Smart Move. And so once you see this, now you can hold the grab button on the side there on your drawing hand and start to shift that. So we can do that for Y, Z, and X. And what's nice is we can also duplicate along those axes. So I can grab that and now just press the pointer finger trigger every time I want to duplicate something out. That's going to give our guy his nice smile here. Now, one thing we want to do is, of course, push these teeth back the farther we get to the edge there, just so there's a little bit of crown on the smile. I'm going to shift these center ones in also. All right, so looks pretty good. Maybe we can do something here with the lip to make it pop out a bit more. So basically what I did here is, you know, rather than add an entire new row of edit points or anything like that, just grab the face here, press the pointer finger trigger, and shrink down this so that the lip protrudes a little bit like that. All right, that looks pretty good. And I think what we can do now is toss some shoes on this guy. So again, let's go to primitive, cube, and we're going to use a cube and actually place it in the environment. But one thing that's, like, maybe you're not making a character, maybe you're making something that's a little more, you know, precise, and it doesn't, you don't have the flexibility of having things be as freeform as they are here. But we still want to use a cube, and we want to use Sub-D from that cube. So you probably want to place it in a pretty exact manner. And as you can see here, I'm dropping this cube in, and it's not really in a uniform manner. It's kind of, you know, twisted like this, and we want it to be locked to the axes here and move it in somewhat of a gridded fashion. So there is a way to do that. And in the new UI, we would press the blue menu button, go to settings, and then go to beta. And once we're in beta, you have the option of turning on or enabling the grid tool here. And so this first switch here just allows you to actually enable the grid tool. And then the next option here actually allows you to turn it on and use it in your environment. So we're going to toggle that to the right. We're going to turn on the grid, and we can also choose the density. So I'm going to just slide that to the second row right there. And now you can see you have these points in here. And now when we drop our cube in, it is perfectly scaling and moving along a grid. So we can do that, drop in our shoes, or the base for our shoes. A simple cube will do. And I actually don't need the grill or the grid from this point on. It's actually kind of blocking me from moving it as freely as I want to, but I just want to make sure that I use the grid to place the cube precisely. So now, blue menu button, let's toggle that off. We don't need that anymore. And yeah, now that it was placed precisely, whenever we scale it and adjust it as a simple primitive, it will of course retain its placement. And now we can convert it to Sub-D and use Smart Move to shift it around, get it where we want it. All right, we just have a simple cube now, but what we're going to do is turn on Subdivision and start making a pair of boots for this guy. So we can start shifting around those surfaces and duplicating them up. Add a tongue to the boots. That looks pretty good so far. We're gonna start plugging in some real detail in a couple of minutes here. But first, let's check the live chat. All right. Sub-D modeling and desperately need this. All right, yeah. Thanks, Jim, for dropping that in. That is a good point. Okay, cool. So okay, go over the tools in the tool belt. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so let's do that right now, actually, because we talked about the beta section. So, okay, as I was showing you for the grid here, we're going to go to Settings and move from Sketching Aid over to Beta. And here you can access the tool belt, the grid, contextual measurements, and so yeah, here first thing we want to do is actually enable the tool belt. So we're going to swap that to the right, and then we can press the blue menu button and actually close that menu. And now to actually access the tool belt in Gravity Sketch, you want to hold the grab trigger and swipe across your body. So that is basically, it's essentially you putting on the tool belt. And now that we have the tool belt, we have these, different tools that we can use here. So let's start from the right-hand side here with the measurement tape. And so we can actually physically grab the measuring tape, hold it, and press the pointer finger trigger to measure between different points. Now you can only have one measurement at a time. So when you let go and you go to make another measurement, it will actually delete that previous one that you made. All right. Then we have the paint tool here, and the paint tool is just a way of basically changing the color and material for everything that you paint over. So you hold in the pointer finger trigger, cross over anything that you want to change, and then let go and your selection will be made. The color picker here, you can point to different parts of geometry, and you'll see it actually changes the color right there. And then now you can start creating with that color that you grabbed. The banana tool is for teleportation and basically navigating around your model. So as you can see here, let me actually just shift that over a bit. So I'm holding the banana tool now, and it kind of has a projection mode right there. So it's going to project your viewpoint to a different to a different location in the scene. And we can use the right-hand joystick to change which way we're looking. So you can see that with the feet icon and also with your headset previewed right there. And so I'm going to change the feet so that they're facing my character still, but from a different location. And then press the pointer finger trigger, and it's going to teleport me to that location facing in that direction. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to, but it's super useful, especially if you're laying out things like a train design or an airplane interior. It's really helpful. All right, the next thing here is the randomizer. So it's just you click, point the trigger, and it will randomize the objects. And it's actually really useful for creative exploration. So I actually like it in this case right here, because what we could do here is duplicate this guy out in a row like this, and grab the randomizer tool and not touch the eyeballs, but touch everything else here, and start to get these really creative shapes here. And you can almost start designing characters off of this. And actually, maybe that's what we'll do, is we'll take this same guy and just start redesigning new characters off of that base template. Okay, the next one here is probably the most useful tool, and this is the precision tool. So you can preview what it does there in the center if you look, and use the joystick to shift between those two options. So I'll just show you what they do here. Let's point at an object. Sorry about that, just getting a call. So let's point at an object and then press the pointer finger trigger. And what the precision tool allows you to do is move along an axis, much like we did with Smart Move. Move along a plane, and then if you take your joystick on your right-hand controller and flick it to the right, you can also access revolve options. So it's telling you actually how much you're revolving and how much you're moving, and then you'll see there's a little label there to snap, and it's got a grid icon on top. So if you press what is the color wheel menu, now you can snap along 15-degree increments. So this is really, really a useful tool. And then this last tool here actually allows you to adjust, let me see if I'm getting this right, but it actually allows you to flip the normals for a surface. So you can just point, click, and flip the normal for a surface here. And then of course, hold the grab button, swipe across your body, and you can get rid of the tool belt. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. That was definitely a good one. Yeah, don't forget, if you can't access the tool belt, go to the beta section under settings and enable it there. All right, so let's try and actually clean up this character a bit here. Play around with everything that we already have. Okay, and that's pretty decent. What we're going to do actually now is duplicate that out and create a new character. So I'm going to hold on to the teeth and I'm going to get rid of the pants here and actually just start duplicating things and making a new character. All right, so again, we're going to use sub-D object here and just drop in a shape, convert it to sub-D, and start shaping things. All right, so for this one, I think I'm going to make some sort of a bird. Kind of a bird character. Just start duplicating things out. And as you can see, I'm not really doing anything different than I was for the previous character. Just the same simple, duplicating out surfaces, edges, and a lot of shaping. All right, now let's make the beak. Again, convert to sub D. Let's drag that face to the mirror plane. Let's turn on subdivision and delete these faces. You delete the faces at the end of an object if you want a clean transition and you don't want it to subdivide at the very end there. So in the case of the beak, we're just going to intersect it with the face here. So I don't really need the a closed off face back here. And let's add a bottom to the beak as well. Here we're just going to duplicate the same thing because I don't really want to make new geometry. Grab the precision tool and do exactly what I was showcasing before. So just rotate this 180 degrees and then get rid of the precision tool. All right, let's see if we have any questions. All right, cool. Yeah, so can the mirror tool be moved, or the mirror plane be moved? That's a good question and something that comes up pretty often. So just going to get rid of this character because the bird character is a lot better. Okay, so as you know, if you come in here to settings, sketching aid, we have the mirror tool that we can turn on and off. And when we drop data in and we adjust it, it's always between Y and Z. So there is no way of actually shifting the mirror to be, along a different axis. But the nice thing about sub-D objects is, so I took these cubes, converted them to sub-D, and connected them across the mirror plane, and we can see that with that icon change there. Sub-D objects actually do retain their mirror. So if I move it off of Y and Z, you'll see by putting it in edit mode, it still retains its mirror. So sub-D objects are the only objects that actually do that in Gravity Sketch as of right now. And then if you wanted to break that mirror, you could come here into the edit panel here, press bake mirror, and so now we have a solid object. The mirror has been broken, but we can turn on mirror again and have that full object mirrored on the other side again. And then just keep doing that. We can connect it, shift it off the mirror plane, do the same thing. Bake it, mirror it again. All right, let's see if there's any other questions. Yeah, definitely you can export this and drop it into Mixamo and make a pretty quick animation. Okay, so this is another decent thing to cover with Sub-D is, so we have these really simple boots, and they look good simply like this, but it might be good to add something like a sole to this. So we could just duplicate down that object and intersect it like this, and it's, you know, the same object, but it gives the indication of a sole for the shoe. Or what we can do is duplicate this down, delete all of that data on the top, shift this down, duplicate it in, and actually build the sole separately. Okay, so now we have what will work for us as a sole for this boot, and then shift it up here and intersect it like that. So you can use the same data to basically segment and add more detail to your model. So we could have also done, if we liked the original proportions, add another edge loop in here, delete what we have at the bottom of the boot right here, and keep the original proportions, do the same thing, select the entire edge loop here, duplicate it in, tighten the radius, and drop that down. Now we have something a little more detailed for this character. And we can also add some simple feathers here. Again, probably best to just use a simple rectangle. Take that, convert to Sub-D, drop in an edge loop in the center there, drop that center out like this, and then convert that to Sub-D. And let's connect this center, or this feather, along the center line. So I'm going to delete half of it, like this. And then just grab the whole thing. Well, I'll grab the edge of it, connect it across center line like this. And then grab the rest of it and draw it in. All right, there we go. Okay, so now, you know, everything that we did here is completely symmetrical. So now what we can do here is I'm going to grab the body, put it into edit mode, and bake the mirror. And so now that I have it baked, I can grab a certain section of this object and basically adjust it without having it mirrored on the other side. So I think what I'm going to do here is try my best to grab the wing, sort of flex it out this way a bit. And add a little bit more detail and make it look like he's holding a cane or a walking staff. And for the actual staff, we can just use the stroke tool here, something simple. Taper the bottom. Turn off mirror. Doesn't really make sense to have it on the other side there. And yeah, you know, let's just use the revolve tool here for the top of the cane. Revolve tool. Put that in edit mode. And we can shrink that down and just plop it on top of the cane there. And turn off mirror as well. Cane's still looking a bit large. All right, that looks much better. And for the heck of it, let's just add a pipe. Again, we could just make this out of the revolve tool. It's a really simple shape to make. And there's really no need to mess around with sub D for such a simple shape. Okay, and I know there was a couple of people that dropped in the beginning mentioning that, you know, they just got Gravity Sketch, just got started with it. If you had some time in the application, you might know that navigation is probably the most important skill to get a hold of and master first. It's going to allow you to view your design from any angle, any perspective, and that's really the value of Gravity Sketch is actually being able to understand your model or your design in a much deeper sense because you're able to view it from every single angle. All right, let's go to the ink tool here, and at the bottom of the ink tool here, of the graph for the ink tool, we have different shape types. Let's go to ribbon and turn off mirror for this, and just add a little bit of smoke indicating over his pipe. Okay, and so actually the last thing I'm going to do on this model is something I'm noticing here on the legs. So this was a quick stand-in that we had, you know, because we were actually building and designing this character as, you know, at the same time, really. So the legs here are made using the stroke tool, and so we can adjust them, and they're basically just lines. And it was fine for quickly describing the legs in the beginning. But now that I know that I like this shape and I want to actually iterate on it a little more, there's only so far you can go with the stroke tool. So in this case, I'm going to delete that and just rebuild them using a primitive shape cylinder. And so we can just drop that in like this. It doesn't need to be exact, just a shape to start off with, and then convert that to sub D. And once we've converted that to sub D, I'll delete the faces just because it's easier to deal with if we delete these faces. And yeah, now we can drop in edge loops and, you know, position these things, scale them up and down by using the joystick on the right hand controller, and just get something that's a lot better looking. And of course, that's without Subdivision turned on. And once we turn on Subdivision, this will look a lot smoother and a lot better. Okay, and just because he has all the other, things that go along with a monocle, I think we should make a monocle. So again, revolve tool, simple tool to use. Let's just make a quick and ugly shape. Shrink it down and plop that right there. All right, let's check out questions again. All right, guys, thank you so much for showing up. I think we're at the end of the hour now. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun to build. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it answered some of your questions. We're always looking at the YouTube comments. So if you want to see something built in the future, please do suggest it. Kind of decided to build this last second before hopping on. And yeah, your opinions and thoughts are, definitely help us shape what we're going to build next time. So drop something in the comment, like the video if it was helpful to you, subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. And yeah, really hope to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.